Okay, welcome to BikeRadio. I'm here with Brendan Hausler, and we are here talking about altitude and how you prepare for a race at altitude if you're from sea level, what to expect, why is riding at altitude harder? And then also we're actually going to talk about if you live at altitude, like how to prepare for races at sea level, which maybe a lot of people don't actually think about. So yeah, so we'll start off like talking about what happens at altitude, and why is it harder. So as you go up in elevation, there's less oxygen in the air, and so there's less pressure of oxygen. So with every breath you breathe in, you're getting in less oxygen, and so your body has to work harder to actually circulate the same amount of oxygen as what you'd have at sea level. And then there's just not as much oxygen available by the time it gets to the muscles. So as a result, your VO2 max goes down, your FTP is going to go down, and you're going to start hyperventilating sooner, and you're just not going to have the same amount of power. So, yeah.
That's the biggest thing for me that I had noticed, and we can talk about. I'd love to share my varied experiences through Colorado Springs for Masters Nats, Ecuador, racing up at 11,000 feet. And that is the biggest thing for me was not the hyperventilating. And I think partly because I use Aerofit, that has been a huge help for me in, I don't want to say staying calm with breathing, because it's not like, oh, just be calm and breathe, but being more in tune with my breathing and understanding. It's really hard to put this in the words. It's like understanding how the deep breaths should feel when going hard on a bike. That's, I think, one of the biggest benefits of this thing.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing that I noticed in Ecuador was that feeling of lack of oxygen to the muscles. It felt like someone was holding onto my legs, and I was just like, oh man, let me pedal this bike.
Yeah.
And up that high, could not do it. And I'm trying to remember, it took about 2.5 weeks. It was right before I left. I had a decent ride, but we can post a link to this chart so people that might not be familiar with this, because I even had somebody comment. So when I'm in Florida at 0 feet, and I grew up in Rochester, New York, so I think it's at 1,000 feet. I went and was in North Carolina visiting and went to do a VO2 max workout. Couldn't do it. And like the numbers were poor. And I was like, this is weird. Why am I? And I was just kind of exploding 2.5 minutes in. And the only thing was afterwards, it dawned on me, wait a minute, I was at 4,500 feet. And when you're non-acclimatized, people don't realize at 5,000 feet, you have 90, and this is, everyone's gonna be different, but this is a chart and we can post this, 91% FTP. So of course you're gonna blow up. If you're trying to hit the top of your VO2 max and you're not lopping off 10% of that. Somebody made a comment when I had said just recently, I went back to North Carolina, they said, man, you're not in like the Rocky Mountains. And I wanted to ask him, hey, have you ever gone from 0 to 5,000? Maybe altitude doesn't hit this guy. Altitude definitely affects me. I get sick from it pretty quickly. So even if you're going to not crazy high areas, be somewhat prepared to take some power off, or it can be, I mean, I think we all know when you're not hitting numbers, it's frustrating and you're wondering what's going on. It could just be that you haven't gotten used to it. And now I think that was being in North Carolina at 4,500 to 5,000 feet was a big benefit for Masters Nationals last year, because the race is at 6,500 and it goes up to 7,000, I think. So instead of going 0 to 7,000, I went 5,000 to 7,000, obviously way closer together. So that's just sort of, I think it's a good tidbit for people to know. Where do we want to take this from there?
It's kind of funny, like when I was born at like 7,000 feet. So
And this is in
that's,
Colorado Springs?
yeah. So that's where like I rode for the first 9 years of my riding experience. And I think I've actually still probably, I've raced at sea level like only a handful of times, like not that much. And I remember the first time I raced at sea level in California, it was nuts. I did like an opener the day before and did like a 5 minute opener, which felt like threshold, but it was like what would be like a 5 minute all out effort for me at 7,000 feet. I was like,
Yeah.
holy cow, like I feel like Superman. And so when I go down to like Boone, which is, like 3,000 to 4,000 feet, like that feels really low to me, actually.
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
you get 10% bonus. Other people are getting a 10%
yeah.
takeaway. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I had never been away from altitude for more than like a week before. And so when I moved to Boone and then came back here after like 5 months, I was like, oh, this is, and so I came back here a month ago, and the first like 2 weeks I felt pretty garbage. And then finally, like last week, I was like, oh, I feel normal now.
So let's talk about that. What do you see as the time that it takes people to acclimate? And so what I had heard is and we're going to get confusing here, every 1,000 meters is 11 days. So every 3,000 feet is about 11 days. What do you go by? Or what have you seen or heard or athletes that you've talked to?
Yeah, I mean, anecdotally, I feel like I've heard 2 weeks, but what you said actually makes a lot of sense because I would be at like 2,000 meters or something like that. So that'd be 22 days, which really it took me about 3 weeks before I started feeling normal. Like my first high intensity workout a week after was awful. And then they kind of got progressively better until like the third week, I actually felt like normal. So I feel like that's probably just based off how it feels is probably pretty correct. But it's actually funny, like my Garmin normally just gives me a load of crap and it says like, oh, you're detraining and you need to recover for 95 hours. But it also gives you that like acclimation thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually felt pretty accurate because like right when I started feeling normal again, like it was when I was saying I was acclimated to 7,000 feet. So,
That
maybe
is
that's
interesting.
actually accurate.
It is interesting on the Garmin. And so I think, so let's talk about what if you're going to race at altitude and you don't have the time to be there for 2 weeks. I had heard that you could just try and show up and trick your body. And so this is where I want to share my Colorado Springs Masters Nats 2019. Yeah, right before Corona. So we went out and we drove from Oklahoma City and I was going to do the time trial. And then I cannot remember now if there was a rest day and then the road race or the time trial and then the road race. But either way, I was there the day before the time trial. The TT was okay. It was a little hot and windy. I came in fifth. Didn't feel great. The bike was a hand-me-down. But I was like, okay, got on like the big podium. Not bad. Was really there for the road race. And the day before the road race just started not feeling great. And I didn't really know what it was. I didn't know. I've experienced altitude sickness in Denver before, but I had never been in like racing mentality. I was not super hungry. My appetite was off, which was weird for a rest day. And that was the first thing that kind of hit me. It was lunch. I don't really want to eat. And I was like, you have a race, you need to eat carbs. And then by the day the race got there, just felt sort of like it's almost really hard to pinpoint exactly how it felt, but definitely just the lack of power. And I felt
Yeah.
like people were attacking and I was having a really hard time to even respond. And I had zero confidence in taking any flyer. It was really all survival and ended up in fourth or fifth. Maybe I got fifth again. Maybe I was fourth in the time trial. Can't remember. But I was on the big podium again. And it was just by lack of hanging on. And I out sprinted a guy for the last spot. A couple guys had gone up the road. And so I didn't do the show up and ride. And so that's what I did when we went to Albuquerque. And I had mapped out, okay, I'm going to get to 5,000, as close as I can get to the race, but still be at 5,000 feet. And then, which is actually only like 2 hours away from Albuquerque. So I drove out there, stayed overnight, drove in, got my number, went to bed and went and raced, felt totally fine. It was about the next day, went and rode Sandia's Peak. And then for me, it's always the third day. Third day, started feeling bad. Like I woke up to ride, wasn't really hungry, felt off, went and rode, didn't feel good. And I was like, this is crazy. This is happening again. And I really thought it was in my head at first. Climbed Sandia's Peak, was weaker than I was the day before. And then the next day is when we were leaving, and I just had like crazy headache and was ready to get out of there. And so I think the tip is, for me, everyone's going to be different. You're going to have to experiment with this a lot, which it stinks if it's a big race, but hey, this is part of racing. It's never a perfect run up. I would show up the day before as late as possible, wake up and go race. I don't know what the science truly is with that, but like, you do trick your body. Once it starts to try to acclimate, you go backwards before you go forwards.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's just, I would do the same thing. And I've actually considered, I'm not sure if I'm going to make it to Albuquerque this year just because of life. But if I get my stuff together, I'm considering flying and maybe trying to just fly out the day before, but I don't love that idea. So I'd still like to drive, but we'll see.
yeah, yeah. I think it's like, I have heard that, and I've actually experienced that. Like the first couple of days I was here, it felt pretty normal. But then I think after I was here for like 4 or 5 days, I definitely started to feel like pretty bad. And I think it's like when you come right up to altitude, you're definitely like not acclimated, but maybe your body's like not trying to acclimate yet. So there's something about like once your body starts trying to like adapt to altitude that it just like shuts down or something.
Mm-hmm. I also
That
noticed, I felt,
hypothesis.
and I don't know if it was the heat. I can't remember how hot it was, but it was hot enough that I remember having to have the air conditioning on in the car for the time trial. I want to say it was 30 or 40 minutes long, and I felt more banged up. Like I felt like I raced. And I mean, granted, the 30-minute effort is pretty hard, but I mean, I ride pretty hard often. I wouldn't feel super wasted from that. I was pretty wiped out from that. And then it's just, yeah, going through that process, like, man, this kind of stinks. So and then I think another piece to that, before we get to people going from altitude to sea level, what would you do to prepare for this? I think the biggest thing for me was, I was looking at the course, having had the experience in Colorado, kind of knowing that climbs and hard efforts were going to be harder. I looked at what's the hardest effort, and in there's this thing called Heartbreak Hill.
I've
It's
been on
actually,
that. It's awful.
you've been on it before?
Yeah, there was a race. They did like a different race. It was back in like 2014. I've done that. It's all just a wall.
Yeah. So, and do you know what's actually funny? If you go from the bottom of 321 in Blowing Rock by where Sunset is and go up Sunset and you can loop around a corner, it is almost the exact same distance and altitude climbed. Like it's a wall.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, that's the hardest effort. I need to make sure I can do that effort at 5,000 feet and feel good about it. So I went on a 4 or 5 hour ride to be more tired, went down to the base, smashed 2 efforts, made sure I was worried about gearing. And I'm like, well, okay, this seems fine. Everyone's going to be dealing with the altitude. Like there's not much extra special things I can do aside from what I said before, using a device like AeroFit to help improve my respiratory performance. Other than that, just attack this race like every other race, knowing that I'm going to have a few less matches. And then with it also being a masters category race, it's going to be much shorter than I'm used to. It's only 60 miles. So, get through 30 miles and then start really racing and pouring it on and just be attentive. So I think approach it as best you can, but just realize most people are going to be in a similar situation. Those that are acclimated, no doubt, they've got an advantage, but what are you going to do about it? You can't change that. So focus on controlling what you can control, and you just got to show up and race.
Yeah, you just have to like accept that it's gonna feel different. You're not there's nothing wrong with you, or you're not like on a bad day. Even if
Mm-hmm.
you are acclimated, like you're still not gonna be able to do the same amount. Like you'll feel more normal. But I mean, like we do some of my favorite races, actually maybe one of my favorite races, which is in a couple weeks, is Mount Evans Hill Climb, which is the highest paved road in North America. It's like 27 miles uphill up to 14,000 feet. And like fact, you're gonna once you get above tree line, like it's gonna feel really weird. You just have to go as hard as you can, and everybody else is dealing with it. And like
What is tree line?
where there's like no trees.
But
So
what
like 11,000 feet maybe.
okay, that's next level. And that's why people who
Yeah,
do Leadville, what does Leadville go to 12.5? Like
yeah,
if you've never ridden at altitude, and again, this is just my experience. The first time I hit 8, I was like, oh dear God, that's where the power really started tanking. But I think 10, 11 is a different beast. That's what I hit in Ecuador.
yeah.
Just dead. Like, cause someone was holding my ankles, and I was like, ah, and I was on a training ride after the race. This was after the race, after I got dropped. Um, and that's actually the race when it went up to 11,000. We were with a couple guys who one is from Kansas, so I don't know how he rode out there, but the other was from Albuquerque, and he's ridden up to like Sandias Peak, so he's been around 11,000. So he knew what the feeling was, and I was just couldn't even keep up, and just a total blob. And then did a couple training rides, and we went on a really cool road, and just yeah, it was bad until 3 weeks in. And so even the thing that's interesting is, like Landry's saying, if you're acclimated, once you're at 10,000 feet, you're only getting 4.5% increase. Now, yeah, that's a big increase when we're talking, if you're racing someone similar category, 4.5% advantage is huge. But, you know, you just got to put that behind you. Just pretend you're on a heavier bike or something. People are going to find there's going to be advantages in some races for you and sometimes for other people. So don't think, oh, I'm having this horrible day. A lot of people are in the same boat, and you just have to push on. I think it's more push on and be smart about it. Don't go too hard. Don't put yourself in the red zone, because that's the other thing. We haven't even said it yet. It's just really hard to recover from hard
Yeah,
efforts.
yeah, yeah.
So
You don't have as many matches. I remember like when I went down to Boone and did a group ride, it was like I did an attack, and then it's like a couple minutes later, it's like, oh, I'm ready to attack again. I think that's one of the biggest things. It's just like you don't have as many matches, and it just takes longer to recover. If you go too deep, like
So, what's your feeling coming from altitude and then coming to sea level, where athletes are used to being able to go do 30 15s, or hey, I'm going to go do a 5 minute effort, recover for 3 minutes, and then go do another 5 minute effort? You probably can't do that as executed as efficiently at altitude, simply because of the atmosphere working against you. How does that affect the training at all? Or what do people, how do you handle that? Do you do more rest in between your intervals up there? And then is the body just cool with it when you come to sea level? Like, I'm only seeing advantages in coming to sea level, but I'm sure there's got to be some weird nuances, because since you can't put out more power, like if you put out 300 watts for X minutes at altitude, can you automatically put out 10% more when you come to sea level? Like, even though your musculature is not used to doing that?
yeah, that's actually been like that was actually one of the weirdest things when I go to lower altitude is like yeah, muscularly it feels a lot harder and like but you're not breathing as hard. So when I do like a really hard effort, it's like my legs will be hurting a lot more. Like I can feel like I'm doing like more force. Um, but it's like I'm not even breathing hard. And so it's just like a different sensation. And it's almost like a lot of times, sometimes when we do the group ride and we're going up that last climb, well, first of all, there's like a long descent. So my body just kind of like locks down after that. But anyways, it's like I feel like I should be able to go harder because I'm not breathing as hard as what I'm used to, but my legs are just like maxed out and it's really weird. So that's kind of like the way that it feels. I've gotten a lot more used to it to where like I feel like good now at that altitude, but it took a while. And when I've prepped like a couple years ago when I did San Dimas in California, I was like preparing specifically for that race. And I did a lot of like 40/20s and yeah, like 40/20s, like the long, like 10-minute ones, basically where I was focused on accumulating time like at the power target that I was gonna do for this uphill time trial, which the thing with like the 40/20s or the 30/15s, like the long ones, is you can accumulate more time at like a higher power than if I was to do like a VO2 max. So I think it was like our strategy was banking time at this higher power to get your body used to those outputs, whether that's mental or physical, I don't know, but that's kind of what the idea was.
It's a good question though. I mean, there's something to be said to just seeing yourself put out power and not feeling totally dead after that, even if it's much shorter than what you're training for. It's actually, I just posted on Instagram about these 6x6 rest reduction intervals, having athletes look at their 6-minute best. How did I do this now? 6-minute best, taking, I want to say 95% of it. I have to go back and look. The whole point is you take 6-minute intervals and you ride at endurance for 4 minutes between them. And then the next week you do 2 minutes between them. And then the next week you do 0 minutes. You just crank out a 30-minute effort. And not many people have done this. I've had 3 people though that have emailed me and said, dude, I did this because it just seemed weird and I crushed a 30-minute PR. But did I really get that much stronger in 3 weeks? I said, who cares? You tricked yourself into just believing you could crush, right? And they're like, that was crazy. So I'm going to post that to the Training Peaks store because I built out the workouts, and I should actually look it up. I can't believe I can't remember this. I haven't done it in a long time, but it worked for me. And that's when I decided to start doing it. And I'll give it to some athletes that are, the thing is, you really have to be an athlete that diligently trains, because I do think there is some positive effect from doing something with 4 minutes rest and then doing like a threshold longer set of intervals and then coming back the next week and doing it, and you're seeing this progress. That's all mental. I mean, we're not getting stronger that fast. And so to your point, is it mental or is it physical? Who cares? Made you faster.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it's mental because I'm able to do numbers that in Boone that like I can't do here. And so it was like I went for this KOM of George's Gap or whatever. And it was, I think when I did it last year, it was like, oh, I might be able to do like, I don't know, 370 watts or something. And like but I was looking at my power and I felt like I could have done more. And it was like, like I held back too much. And even now it's like, I feel like if I look too much at my power, it's like, like I could have done more. Like I was only maxed out like the last minute or two.
So you don't look at your power when you're doing these?
Well, I stopped because I kept holding myself back when I came to lower altitudes. So I went back and did George's Gap this year
and crushed it.
Yeah, I was surprised at how fast. Well, I took it from Travis and then he like tried to take it back and then like tied me, so I had to go and do it again. But this time I basically just said, I'm not going to even look at my power and I'm just going to keep it in the big ring like the whole way up and just crank. And
okay, like, so without making this a podcast about one specific KOM, but I tried for his and I'm 8 seconds off his old time. And I was moving and I was like, okay, I can get 8 seconds on this guy. And I can't remember the wind. How was the wind that day is my first question. And your time is very stout. Where in the ride did you go over and do it? Were you like an hour into the ride? Because some of these KOMs I go at like hour 4 and there's just no, like some of the ones on that backside, the way you showed me back to Blowing Rock, I'm just way too wasted. And so I even tried to do one the other day though. And that when I was in Boone, and that's actually was a very frustrating day because I was super far from a lot of them. I'm like, wow, I feel horrible. This is bad. So how did you feel that day, and what were the conditions like?
Like I don't really think there was much wind at all, and especially like that climb, there's so many trees and stuff in the summer, like, and it's also super twisty. So I mean, even if the wind is coming from one direction, I mean, it was breezy, but I don't even
You're like, it was probably like a 5-mile-an-hour headwind, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't really remember. I don't think
So
so.
it wasn't memorable. So it wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah. And then I did it. I just went like straight down and did it. I was probably like an hour in, and
Okay.
then just like absolutely murdered myself. Hit like 201 beats per minute or something like that, and I was pretty much destroyed after that. So it was just like a one-off,
Yeah.
like all or nothing. I gotta get this, and I'm
Dude,
sure
crushed.
somebody will take it someday. I'm
Someday,
happy to
but
have
this
it
is
right
a
now.
stout one. I think you'll be in the top 10 for a long time. And that's one thing. So I actually should really email Strava about this. I would like if I could follow a segment. So meaning, or so I could follow this and be like, I didn't know that you and Travis were going back and forth. That's super fun. Why don't I know about that? Like that would have been cool to see that play out. Like, hey, Travis just tied Landry on that climb you're following. Ooh, Landry just took it back. I was like, oh damn, let me watch this. Second thing, if you have the KOM and someone comes within top 5 of you, I need an alert on that. I need to know someone's out there looking at my like coming after me, so I can maybe go back and double down and not lose this. Because how great would it be if Joey comes up, he's like, damn, I just got 4 minutes. Brendan only's at 4:05. He goes back, he gets 4:05 and thinks he got it. He's like, wait, or I'm doing the times wrong. But then I did maybe like 3:50. He's like, damn it, he came back and did it better. And so you could like kind of jump ahead of people as they're trying to poach your stuff. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things that Strava should be doing.
Yeah.
Anyways,
After
they're busy with
I
their own
think
problems.
Travis was very upset with me because I noticed I went back and looked at his Strava and he started trying to take like all my other KOMs, but he didn't get them. So it's like,
Oh, Travis
yeah,
Byrne.
he's probably gonna be. I don't
Man,
know. He's
that
gonna
dude
be
just
giving me the cold shoulder next time I see him on the group ride.
is he riding still? That dude's super fast. Does he train anymore? Is he riding?
I think I see he doesn't upload all his rides to Strava, but
What's up with
he's
that, guys? Other people do that. I have a friend that does that. He's like, all my rides are private. And
yeah, I
except
see him out. I see him out quite a bit. I still think he rides most days. I mean, he's still really fast. He's also like pretty punchy too. Like if he's
yeah.
with me at the end of the climb, like he's gonna out sprint for sure.
Yeah, there's some strong guys up there. Okay, back to the topic. Altitude. Well, sorry everybody, but there was this KOM is beautiful. It's what is it, 8 minutes? You guys are in the sevens. I think I'm in the 8 minute.
Yeah,
It's a
it's like 8 minutes.
beautiful. It's 8 minutes for slow people like me. It's 7 something for Landry, and it's a beautiful climb. It is. Yeah, I'm just gonna bring people on it. I can't wait. It's a cool name, George's Gap. Like, who doesn't want that? Everybody wants that
That's
one.
my favorite. That's my favorite road. Honestly, I ride it all the time.
I ride it very often. It's phenomenal. So I'm really looking forward to getting on the top of that leaderboard. I'll be coming after that one. I might just try and peak for next year for that.
Dude, I am coming. Like I know you're gonna be coming for my KOMs. I'm gonna come for you this fall. Watch out.
Which ones do you want?
I'm gonna take your one that you did on like 421 on the YOLO full send ride. You took my
Oh,
Dark Ridge.
that's easy. You'll get Dark Ridge back. See, here's the thing. I have a lot of softies out there. There's a lot of them that, as I set them, I'm like, this won't last. The
Oh,
one,
KOM's a
okay,
KOM.
if somebody takes, what's the one going over to George's Gap? That's the 2.5 minute I took from Will Hardin, which I was like pretty pleased with.
I'm not Mast Gap. There's
Dude,
no way I'm taking
if somebody takes that from me, I'm giving them 50 kudos. I was riding up this out of my freaking mind, like
I was on that ride.
spitting. Were you on that? Oh, we did do that together. Yeah, dude. Maybe that's why I rode so hard. Like I needed that motivation of somebody behind me. I don't think I got out of the big ring, and it was one of those times you just feel incredible. And I thought, if I don't get this KOM today, I'm never getting it. I don't think I could touch that time. I was like triple coated in Lactico all over, felt nothing, and just shut my brain off and went so hard. I ride up that climb many times on the way to George's Gap, and yeah, this is what I love about Strava. Okay, we got to get back to the topic. Altitude. So what do you do then? Any other tips for going or things that are important for people going high to low?
You can do more than like what you think you can. So just don't, I mean, honestly, like hide your power and like just do it off a feel, like especially in a race, like you can just attack. Like, don't be afraid to just like go full send, like, because you can go deeper and recover. Like, you have more matches, so maybe if it's like a road race or something, like, don't be afraid to be aggressive.
So it's really more don't limit yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think so. I think a lot of it's just mental. Like, it just feels different, and you can do more. Um, yeah.
And then I was gonna, I don't really have too much to share from Ecuador. I think it was a lot of the same feelings coming from Florida. We had the first 4 stages, I think it was, at sea level. And so we did amazingly well there. And then we drove to Quito, which is at 8,500 feet. And the race started, I think, at 9,000 or 8,600. And so that's one of the first races where I've been dropped within the first 3 minutes. Just open highway and this little, like, I don't know, I don't know what the term is for this car, but this guy, like, we're riding up this highway and I'm like, wow, I feel pretty bad. And so I think just that massive jump accelerated. I was hoping I would feel okay the first day. I didn't feel great. And we also didn't sleep much, but that's a different story. And I'm looking at this climb that we're coming up to, and the guy puts his arm on. I'm like, oh, damn, I think the stage is like about to start right here. And the guy waves the flag, and this little beat up car drives up the hill, and it was so wide, like 50 guys just attack. And I think they were probably all half my size, which also didn't help my case. But man, it was just bodies everywhere, mostly tall gringo ones towards the back, and got dropped pretty fast. So I think if you're going to go to a place where it's an extreme change, like 8,000 feet, I'm just going to wish you good luck. I don't really have a good answer for that one. It's pretty bad. And so looking at this chart, 85%, that probably sounds about right. I mean, my power, I should look back, but I remember riding, if I could do conservatively zone 2, just cruising 270 times 84%, 226. Yeah, I think I was doing like 220, 215 and feeling bad. Actually, that was at 11,000. So that makes even more sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When
So,
you're up to like 14,000, like the last 20 minutes of like Mount Evans or Pikes Peak, you can't go above like low tempo and you're maxed out. Like, you are at like
yeah,
low tempo.
it is crazy. I'm looking at this chart, non-acclimatized, it's just 70% FTP at 14,000 feet.
Basically. I mean, unless
So,
you like live at 14,000 feet, you're not acclimated even.
right. Yeah. And it's interesting, the higher you go, well, that's not true. I was going to say something that's not true. Closing thoughts. This was a good one. I really enjoyed this. Any last tips, thoughts going low to high, high to low, or what's your next altitude experience coming up?
Well, I'm doing Mount Evans in a couple weeks, which is like the state championship hill climb in Colorado, and there's a ton of prize money. So usually, though, because there's a bunch of prize money, there's always a bunch of like pros that show up. So like one year there was like Chad Higa shows up, Greg Daniels shows up, Keegan Swerble shows up, Sergei Petkov, and then like the entire wildlife team, and they're all going to race Tour of Utah. So we'll see what the field is like, but it's always a fun challenge. And then I'm coming back to low altitude, like 3,000 feet, in like a month. So
We'll be shredding.
yeah, I'll still have like the extra red blood cells for Boone Grand Fondo, hopefully. So
When is that? I don't know if I'm going to do
I
that.
think it's like August 6th or something.
Yeah, same weekend of Masters Nats. If I go out there, I don't even know if I would do that. That course is not good. It's really
Yeah, it
bad.
doesn't look like amazing, but I mean, since I'm there, I'm gonna do it. So.
The course is bad. I really like the Grand Fondo people that put it on, but they put you on some very not safe roads. And I went on one where people are going 55. There's no shoulder there in Boone. And I'm like, why am I on this road? And then the descent back into town was super sketch. I don't
Which
know.
road was it?
I don't know Boone well, but it was as if you were coming from the west side. So when I came down campus, like the town was on my left and campus would be on my right, and you're kind of, it's a weird setup. Look at the route. I don't know of all the roads why they picked some of those. Blew my mind.
Yeah.
If you do it, maybe I would do it. And I don't know. I'd like to go ride with some of those other people. I haven't seen anybody out there if I'm back in town then. But yeah. But my final words are go climb mountains, go to places that have crazy climbing, ascents, be careful on the descents. And did we make a crazy YOLO full send part 2?
I made one for you. I didn't know I was doing it.
You made one for me? Wait, did you send that to me? Because I actually just looked back through Strava. Can you send it to me again? Because I looked back through Strava and I don't know if I have the notification.
Yeah. It's like 20,000 feet of climbing.
Oh God, I have not seen that. Send that to me.
It has like the extension. So you can go up Blue Ridge and then that's like 20,000. But if you just want to do like the semi-YOLO full send, it's only 17,000 feet.
If I'm going that YOLO, I feel like I should do 20.
I'll send it to you.
It's aggressive. Yeah, if you can email it to me, that'd be great. All right, man. Well, thanks for doing this. What's the next topic that we're doing? Do we know that for next week? I'm going to cut it. We're going to leave everyone in suspense, and I'm going to cut it here.